capital market hearing, which began at the floor, in the House of Representatives yesterday with that committee. Well, a lot did happen there, and this morning we're joined by Mr. Abiodun Sopitan, who is a financial analyst, and he was also with the CBN. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you very much.
Well, speaking about the CBN, I mean, they've been in the news lately. In our opening sequence, we did talk about it, how Ms. Falana wants to take them to court for violating Section 162, asking them to explain within 7 days why he should not do otherwise. But we'll have that report here, so we'll let you listen to it and you give us your thoughts. Since, you used to be in the CBN, you're out now, so you should have an understanding of what's going on. But just hold on, let's play that report so you can see that.
The monthly federation allocation to the 3 tiers of government is taken from the revenues accrued from oil receipts. Recently, this exercise raised some dust as the Central Bank of Nigeria was accused of contravening the 1999 Constitution by disbursing the allocation in the local units that is the naira instead of the US dollars. According to Henry Boyo, an economist through his legal advisor, Femi Falana, the Apex Bank contravened Section 162 of the 1999 Constitution, which states that there shall be a federation account into which all revenues collected by the government of the federation shall be paid, except the proceeds from the personal income tax of the personnel of the armed forces, the Nigerian police force, the ministry or department of government charged with the responsibility for foreign affairs, and the residents of the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja.
The appropriate thing is for dollar-derived revenue to be paid to the beneficiaries of the federation pool in that denomination without somebody prior changing it into naira. Because when you do that, you will suddenly find what the prime mandate of the central bank will suddenly become achievable. In other words, interest rates would fall.
However, another economist, Bismarck Rwani, disagrees with our stance.
It's amusing to think that anybody would consider that because the Central Bank of Nigeria pays over to the states or the federal government the naira equivalent of the dollar petroleum sales, they will be contravening the Constitution.
Olalade Agaba, a legal practitioner, gives an interpretation to Section 162 of the Constitution.
It's actually silent about whether disbursement should be made in dollar or naira. In fact, I would lean towards, the position that it should be disbursed in naira, given that, we're an independent state, Nigeria. You wouldn't expect, other entities or other foreign countries to want to disburse in our currency.
At the time of this report, there was no response from the Central Bank of Nigeria. Bolaji Akinwale, Channels Television News.
Well, there you have it. Should they have responded immediately, or are they still looking at it and waiting for a response?
Well, since somebody is already threatening to take them to court, maybe we are waiting for the person to go to court. But in actual fact, the argument has always been there, as to what to do with our proceeds of with our petrodollars. People have argued that, since these state governments are going to use this money for importation and other things anyway, why don't you just allocate the thing in dollars, in the currency in which it came? Then let the state governments go and decide what they want to do with their own share of the petrodollars.
Do you think this has got anything to do with patriotism?
I'm not sure about that. The thing is that this money came in dollars. So why do you first change it to naira, then come and share the naira? And what people are saying is that, look, at the end of the day, a lot of these monies will still be used for importation and all that's true. So these governments who are now paid in naira will have now to go back to the banks to now start buying the foreign currency all over again. So you are only sort of round tripping. But I'm not sure it's either here or there. But it's not. I'm not sure it has anything to do with the patriotism. I think it makes more sense to me to disburse the money in the form in which it came, rather than first change it to whatever and then when you now need the same currency that you need, you now have to go back to the market.
You think it's business?
Is it what?
You think it's some kind of business going on somewhere?
I'm not sure about that.
We thought you would be, since you were a former deputy director in CBN. Okay. All right, then. But another matter, which some financial matter. Remember, the House, they've started this. The committee started this probe of the capital markets, right. And yes, yesterday, one of those days where they had their session. So again, we'll bring this report to you. Another one of reports we're bringing today, and we'll predicate a focus perhaps on that.
And implement a project.
Day 2 of the House Committee on Capital Markets and Other Financial Institutions probe on the activities of the country's capital markets began with the Chief Executive Officer of the Nigerian Stock Exchange, Oscar Onyema, giving account on the performance of the stock market, especially the factors responsible for the downslide, which started in 2008.
The capital market boom of 2004 to 2008 triggered an increase in retail participation. With little to no experience, first-time investors poured into the market, unaware of the innate risk of investing in the capital markets. During this time, January 2nd, 2004 to March 5th, 2008, the peak of the market, the All Shares Index surged 225.37%, and the market capitalization for listed equities grew 841.46%.
While stating macroeconomic challenges facing the markets, the NSE boss made reference to other problems of the stock markets before he assumed leadership last year, to include speculation and low financial literacy, insider trading, inadequate regulatory framework, poor corporate governance, inefficient internal processes, lack of transparency with broker-dealers, high interest rates, and illiquidity, among other challenges. Now time to listen to the Director General of the SEC, Ms. Aruma Ote, and other officials of the Commission. The SEC was accused of failing to protect the interests of investors, especially in the wake of the nationalization of rescued banks.
Would you say that the investors in those nationalized banks were protected by the SEC?
One of the issues that I would like to clarify, Honorable Chairman, is that when an investor makes an investment decision to invest in a company, while I as a person, given my background, would like to make sure that at every point in time that they make a positive return on their investment, it's indeed the responsibility of that investor in that case. So as a regulator, we cannot guarantee that you will always make a positive return on your investment.
But
what we can guarantee is that we provide the environment to ensure that you will not be defrauded.
I like your answer. Beautiful.
Yes.
Where you go into a company to invest, you bear the risk of probably profiting or losing. But it doesn't also include where government by itself decides to nationalize the company and declares your shares as invalid. That is completely different from what we're saying. The central bank could easily have also said that because we're nationalizing these banks, depositors will lose like they lost in Savannah those days. But they ensured that didn't happen. They protected investors. But I want to take you up on something. I want to put it to you before I close the first issue, that you failed in your job to guarantee the investments of people who invested in those banks that were nationalized.
Then this interrogation took another dimension.
I've been asked about issues that are sub judice, that are currently in the Investments and Securities Tribunal, and what I'm trying to make sure is that we respect the law and that I don't bring up issues that are sub judice.
You don't want to take the entire time of this committee with explaining to us what our job should be. It shouldn't matter to you the manner in which we ask questions. What we want is clarity. A final report a resolution was reached. They looked at it critically because it's a lengthy document and came to a final conclusion. My question to you is, how did you direct? Because necessarily will go to your table for you to direct so that there will be final resolution. How did you direct? Please answer as to how you directed on this matter. Or is it strange to you? Is this matter strange to you?
No, Honorable Chairman, as you pointed out in what you've just said, it is a very elaborate issue, and I think it is important that the issue is dealt with in all its ramifications, and whatever decisions that I take are guided by the ISA and the rules, and also ensuring that there is fairness and equity. On this issue, given my past experience in the last 30 minutes, you will not give me sufficient time to describe the issue. But what I'd like to say, and as you said, you have the report in front of you because somebody made that submission to you. I think it'll be important to bring together all the reports related to the issue.
From all indication, there is no end to this probe yet, as the House Committee on Capital Markets and other financial institutions plans to reconvene on Thursday to continue its investigation into what it describes as lack of protection for investors in the capital markets. Bolaji Akinwale, reporting for Channels Television News.
All right, then, well, so much going into that hearing, such that there was a lot of focus on a lot more things other than what transpired in terms of regulation. But looking at that report alone, what strikes you?
I think some people are only trying to hide behind the law. I mean, the SEC is the apex regulator of the
Nigerian Stock Exchange.
I'm sorry, the capital market. Just as the CBN is the apex regulation for the banks and all that. I agree with the chairman of the House of Reps that I thought I switched this in.
Okay, because I mean, it only entered the second day yesterday, and so the expanded version, there you have this one. But yes, you go ahead and make your point. But okay, continue on that one before we bring in the second.
Well, like I was saying, the issue of the nationalized banks.
Yeah.
Some investors put their money in these banks, and then suddenly we have been told that these banks have been nationalized, and then these investors have lost everything they put in that bank. I think the SEC owes those investors some explanation. I mean, and in any case, the CBN, you know, there's a body, I can't remember the exact name now, that comprises all these regulations, the CBN, the SEC, the CAC. They all sit down together, and there should be this coordination in these issues. I mean, if I put my money in a venture, and then suddenly the CBN says, incidentally, those banks were given a period within which to do certain things, and that period hadn't elapsed before we had this, and now taxpayers' money is being put into these banks.
Okay, but if you look at if you sat down to watch the entire proceeding,
yeah.
I mean, if you sat down there waiting to get information, there were some sort of items that kind of popped up as though they were distractions. You were wondering, wait a minute, what are these guys doing? I mean, members of the House of Reps, because the line of questioning, the way it came across, kind of made you tended to say, what's going on? You have some information, you want them to respond to it, but the way the questions came out caught on the
I mean, it's definitely unfair to, if you have a report, you should give the people an opportunity of actually knowing what you are talking about before you now start acting. It's like ambushing them. If you have questions that proper from the report before you, then and these people have to react to this, and then they have the fair play. They have you have the responsibility of letting them know what exactly you are talking about. I mean, I agree with Ms. Otte that she doesn't have the information that she's being asked questions about. The House should have confronted her with this issue, then she can come and comment on those things.
You know, the way it is, and you said something that I quite like. You said she owes the investors some kind of explanations. But from what we saw from that report and even from the proceedings yesterday, did you observe, or do you think that the committee gave her sufficient time to explain or expatiate on some of the answers she was meant to give them?
Well, I think she too was trying to be clever by claiming that these things were subjudice. Yes, the stock. I think the shareholders have gone to court.
But subjudice matters. We're not likely to discuss them. Matters in court, rather.
The people are talking about what is happening to their investment, but the SEC is supposed to tell us. This incidentally is about some particular banks, but the SEC owes all of us who are investors in the capital market some protection, and that's what I think the House of Reps is trying to make them understand, that they owe the people who invest in this. Yes, each one of us who goes out there to make an investment has the responsibility of being sure of what we are doing there. But that's why the SEC was set up, to regulate what's going on in the in the capital market.
It was obvious that, when the capital market crashed, with all the reports of insider trading and all, SEC had, come short of its glory, as it were. And then Ms. Ote was brought in to, restore some sanity into this particular sector. Now, considering that a host of Nigerians, majority of Nigerians who invest in the capital market, have been slighted by the fact that, their investment is now nothing to write home about. The probe was definitely something they were looking forward to. Yes. And maybe some form of reassurance, because what we are also looking forward to doing is know what is going on there, and then reassuring investors that work is going on in progress to restore some confidence back in the market. Precisely. From what you saw yesterday, did you see anything, any form of reassurance being given to investors? Did you feel reassured as an investor?
No, definitely not. We have been told that you are on your own. That when you go out there to go and make your investment, it's your decision, and that's not how it should be. That's why the regulatory body is there. If you invest in this capital market, and then you saw the AP issue, where because of two people who had issues with each other, they were manipulating the prices of these things, and these are the things that the SEC is
my question is based on the fact that both SEC and even members of the House of Rep have a responsibility towards investors.
Yes.
Because, this is not just about SEC alone, reassuring investors. It's also about the sensitive nature of this capital market that relies on minute information.
Precisely.
Do you think that this should have been a public hearing in the very first instance?
In fact, that's one issue that has been, because, like you said, the capital market is very information sensitive. The slightest information would cause so much this, and that's why I thought maybe there should have been some interaction between the SEC and the House, rather than bringing the whole thing. The SEC and even the House of Reps, what they owe us as investors is to assure us that, okay, something is being done to ensure that the capital market cannot afford any more negative information.
I still want us to look at the probe. I'm bothered and worried. If we have a probe panel in place and we're likely to get answers or get an insight into what exactly is happening, and we're not getting it, so what's the use of such panel? We're asking this because we've seen some other probes. Take, for instance, the most recent of them was the subsidy probe. You could see the comportment of some of these people asking questions, and not even at the end or at that same panel indict people when they're not done with it.
Yeah.
What we saw, for instance, let's quote a representative Hembe. He said, "I put it to you," and he said, "Before we close this, let me close this, and I put it to you." So people are a little bit worried, so that we don't lose the whole essence of this.
I agree with you. In fact, that's what I was saying, that the whole essence of this thing is to reassure the investing public. The House of Reps has a responsibility to all of us. In fact, what I found not quite...
Sorry, Mr. Sopitan, how reassuring can that be when you haven't even allowed the person in charge of that regulatory body to speak and say it the way it is, and you keep interjecting, keep stopping the person on how...
No, I think the SEC officials too did not do themselves any favor by trying to hide behind the law. Okay? Yes, these people have some information at their disposal, which they sort of are guiding ordinarily, if you wanted me to react to something, I should know what's all about. But then the SEC people shouldn't try to hide behind the law. They owe all of us a responsibility. I mean, the SEC Director General didn't do herself or her organization a favor by telling us that investors are on their own when they go. Yes, investors go there to take decisions about what to buy and what not to buy. But the SEC owes the investors to the responsibility of ensuring that the capital market is properly regulated. That's their business. And it's because we had all this hanky-panky in the business that we are now where we are. Some people lost their lives over this thing we are talking about.
But you see, that so many things pop up with this hearing all by itself. First, should there have been a public hearing? And secondly, the matters that needed to be sorted out. And so if the people don't know about that sector, how do they invest in it? Because before 2004 and 8, so many people, first-timers, came into that based on a certain kind of information. Yes. And so people are kind of divided. How should this have been handled? I have to invest based on appropriate and correct information. So if that is not forthcoming because of the fact that, that market trades in very sensitive light, doesn't that come in the way of me getting correct information so as I can deal in properly? So many things that a lot of people are taking away from. That's what we're saying.
That the issue really is not for public hearings per se. I mean, yes, if you wanted to talk of how the regulators have done their job and all that, maybe. But to go into the nitty-gritty of individual companies and all that, I think, in fairness to the SEC officials, the House should have confronted them with information. If you don't just start asking me questions on information that are not available to me. But I still believe that the SEC didn't do itself a favor. Maybe there should have been some interaction before this thing blew into the open. The House should have maybe written the SEC, okay, we have this information, what are you doing about it, and all that. But I got the impression that there was a time, I think it was the stock exchange that said the House has no business in its, I thought that was arrogant. There's no part of this. And this issue had been on all the while, because in Nigeria we talk of personalities rather than institutions. The SEC and the stock exchange have been at loggerheads right from the time of the former DG. The SEC is the regulatory authority for the capital market, and the stock exchange is accountable to the SEC. But because of the personality of the person involved, the stock exchange saw the SEC as being a nuisance, and because of that, a lot of things happened that shouldn't have happened. The SEC was supposed to have been stock exchanges are generally self-regulatory organizations, but then they still have to be accountable to the laws of the land. The laws of the land make the SEC the supervisory body for the stock exchange. Right now, what we have is that, I think there is some sanity probably returning to it, but the fact that the stock exchange wants to claim that the House of Reps had no business probing into its affairs is it's not the right thing.
I think they didn't quite say that yesterday from what we followed, and because we're also trying to look at it in totality, the gamut of problems brought before the panel yesterday. But again, if you look at it from the little you're not a lawyer, should we be talking about issues that are already being looked at in the law courts?
No, and yes. No, because these are specific issues. But we are talking of the overall responsibility of the SEC to the investor. In this particular case, the shareholders of these particular banks have gone to court. But what happens, I told you the instance of the AP. The general public was made to suffer because two people had issues within themselves and they had money to throw around. And a lot of people, if you know what, I told you, some people lost their lives because of this stock exchange, the stock crash. The whole thing shows that there's still so much that we need to do. In actual fact, the problem of the stock exchange started with the consolidation of the banks. when we had so many issues coming up on the market, and all these issues were oversubscribed. Where did the money come from? Because a lot of the investors were institutional investors who came with hot money from abroad. And then we had the financial crisis in the world. That actually emasculated our capital market. Because the values had become so escalated. Then when they had issues in their own country, they quickly made their kill, took their money out of the country. And then we were left with the shell. And that's what all of us are still tackling, having to. And that is what the stock exchange and even the House of Reps, that's what they should be addressing now. How to restore public confidence in our capital market. I mean, that's
in other words, the financial crisis witnessed by the world then, especially in Europe and America, we weren't quite insulated from that problem.
It was actually what triggered off what we have now. You see, excuse me, like I said, the bulk of the investors in our capital market were institutional investors who brought in their money from abroad. And, let me give you one single instance. I think Japol came to the market at about 3.95. As at the time of the crisis, it was about 16 naira in the market. So if you sold 1 million shares of Japol, you made about 10 million. So these people quickly made their kill. They sold what they had here in order to go and meet the deficit they have in their various countries, and then went away with our own distance. And that's what we were now left holding this Japol today is about 65 kobo per share. And so this is what the SEC and even the House of Reps, this is what they should be doing. How to really get the capital market back on its feet.
Okay.
Instead of having to ban the trades, whatever.
But one other thing is that as an investor or would-be investor, if they listen to that probe for the second day, one wonders what will be going through their minds, having seen the way
if the sex person says you are on your own, why do you want to go and why do you want to risk your money where the person is supposed to
Mr.
protect you?
I don't know. What I got from that explanation was that she would do her best to ensure that there are no sharp practices, but it's ultimately the investor's responsibility to ensure that she cannot guarantee that she will always make positive returns.
Definitely not.
I'm trying to quote her
yes.
words now. I don't think that she quite said that, if you go into the market, you're on your own, I owe you nothing. I don't think that is basically what she's saying.
That's the impression the ordinary person will get.
No, the ordinary person will have to look deeper than that, because that's not what she said.
That goes to this. A lot of us have this literacy that we assume that every other person has. She was saying that if I decide to go to the stock market, I have to decide if I want. You can go to the stock market. A lot of people went to the stock market then because it was the in thing, not because they had.
Yes, but a lot of people also went to the stock market forgetting that it was an investment venture like every other venture that can fail or succeed.
Yes.
And when finally it failed and fell face flat on its face, they were quite shocked out of their wits that it could fall the way it has fallen.
Yes.
If you speak with a host of people, they will tell you that the shares are not exactly back to even their original value. They're not back to what they're worth.
Time, yes.
But looking at, I know that Chamberlain already winding us up now, but looking at how she was being questioned yesterday, what did you make of that line of questioning?
No, I agree. Like we all agreed here, I'm not sure this type of thing is meant for a public probe like that. If you wanted to come to the public, at least you ought to have done some background information exchange.
Did you perceive hostility?
Well,
I know it's important to ask, because sometimes if you're hostile to somebody, there is no way you would have done anything in the background.
Definitely. That's why I said
what you will want to do is humiliate that person.
Well, that's why I said maybe we don't need a public probe yet. They should have sorted themselves out before actually coming, because the impression given now is that they are out to nail this person, and that the person will not allow herself to be nailed. And at the end of the day, you and I
will suffer again.
Yes.